Welcome back. We start a news bulletin from the World Health Organization, which has declared the coronavirus outbreak in China to be a global emergency. The announcement comes as the death toll from the disease rose to 213 with nearly 10,000 confirmed cases. This report has details.
China's struggle with coronavirus is intensifying, with almost 2,000 new cases of the disease confirmed in the past 24 hours. It hasn't just stopped at China. The virus has now spread to 18 countries. The World Health Organization declaration is intended to stop or reduce the cross-border spread of disease.
I'm declaring a public health emergency of international concern over the global outbreak of novel coronavirus. The main reason for this declaration is not because of what is happening in China, but because of what is happening in other countries. Our greatest concern is the potential for the virus to spread to countries with weaker health systems and which are ill-prepared to deal with it.
On the other side of the world, France has recorded its 6th case of coronavirus. French Chief Health Officer Germain Salomon says they've sent a medical team to China.
There is a very large medical team that has left for Wuhan with infectologists, general practitioners, nurses, psychologists who are certainly going to make the welcoming arrangements at the airport and on the plane, since they are going to travel with them.
Many countries are advising their people against visiting China, while others have banned entry for travellers from Wuhan. Pakistan has also stopped flights in and out of China.
Meanwhile, Pakistan has decided not to repatriate its citizens stranded in China's Hubei province. The Prime Minister's advisor on health, Dr. Zafar Mirza, says the decision has been taken in the larger interest of the country. In a press conference, the health advisor said no Pakistani citizen has been diagnosed with coronavirus within the country. The virus has been confirmed in 4 Pakistani nationals living in China. The health advisory said if the country started evacuating people, the epidemic might spread all over the region. Meanwhile, India and Nepal have reported their first coronavirus cases. Moving on to the Middle East, the UN Security Council has called for an immediate end to hostilities in Yemen. In a statement, the Council said the increase of fighting threatens the political process meant to end the war. The UN body has voiced concern at the significant growth of violence in Naim and Al Jauf regions and its effect on civilian life. The Council says reducing or stopping the fighting will create a space for Yemeni political parties to begin negotiations. The statement comes after an emergency council meeting held on Tuesday at Britain's request. In the US, the Democrat-controlled House of Representatives has approved measures that reassert congressional authority over war powers. The House voted to repeal the 2002 Iraq War Authorization by 236 votes to 166. It also passed a plan to prevent tax dollars from being used to take military actions against Iran without congressional approval. 3 weeks ago, another vote forced the White House to ask for approval before escalating tensions with Tehran. House Democrats say these measures will reassert Congress's constitutional authority over war powers. The House Republicans say Democrats acted irresponsibly by restricting the government's ability to protect American lives. Moreover, the U.S. is seeking Iraq's permission to bring in Patriot missile defenses into the country and to better defend American forces. The U.S. does not have air defenses deployed to the Al-Assad air base in Iraq, where Iran's missiles struck and wounded 50 American soldiers. In a briefing in Washington, Defense Secretary Mark Esper said securing Baghdad's permission is slowing the repositioning of the air defenses. He said the U.S. military is still deciding on more tactical issues, which as where best to place the defenses. Esper said Washington will not remove all its forces from Africa. Meanwhile, the US has imposed fresh sanctions on Iran's nuclear agency and its top official. The Treasury Department says Iran's atomic energy chief Ali Akbar Salehi and the organization itself have been blacklisted. The Trump administration said it will waive sanctions that bar non-US firms from working at Iranian nuclear sites. Responding to the development, Iran says the sanctioning of Tehran's nuclear chief shows Washington's despair. Spokesperson for IAEO, Behrouz Kamalwandi, said Tehran's civilian nuclear program will continue with full force. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has condemned Trump's administration's deal of the century, saying Jerusalem is a red line for Muslims. Erdogan said Trump's deal ignores Palestine's rights and is absolutely unacceptable. He said, the plan will not serve peace or bring about a solution. Earlier, US President Donald Trump referred to Jerusalem as Israel's undivided capital. Speaking at a ceremony in Ankara, Erdogan said the Middle East peace deal is an invasion project. Turkey has called Italy's remarks on Ankara's maritime agreement with Libya's UN-recognized government unfortunate. In a statement, Foreign Ministry spokesperson urged all EU members to abandon the attitude of ignoring the Turkish Cypriots. He said, as coexisting communities, Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus has equal rights with Greek Cyprus over oil and gas. The spokesperson said Northern Cyprus granted exploration and drilling licenses to the Turkish Petroleum Corporation based on these rights. He said the ongoing research and drilling activities are aimed at protecting the rights of Turkish Cypriots and not Turkey. Earlier, Italy and Cyprus termed the maritime border agreement between Turkey and Libya unacceptable. In Italy, over 6,000 people have been barred from disembarking a cruise ship after a suspected case of coronavirus on board. Officials said samples taken from a Chinese couple were sent for testing. The couple boarded the ship on 25th of January from the port of Savona. Their initial tests came negative, but they are suffering from fever and having breathing difficulties. In a statement, the cruise ship management said their priority is to guarantee the health and safety of passengers and crew. The death toll from the coronavirus outbreak has now risen to 213, and cases have been diagnosed in 15 countries. As we move towards Brexit, the UK is about to leave the European Union today after 47 years. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson will hold a cabinet meeting in Sunderland and later hail the dawn of a new era in his Brexit speech. In a historic address to the nation, the Prime Minister will promise that his work to reunite Britain begins immediately. Most EU laws will remain in force until the end of the year, while the country attempts to negotiate a permanent trade agreement with the EU. Later today, Brexiteers will gather in Parliament Square for a celebration and a countdown to the moment the UK leaves the bloc. In Brussels, the British flag will be removed from the EU institutions, with one union flag expected to be consigned to a museum. Australia's capital territory, Canberra, has declared a state of emergency while massive bushfires rage south of the city. Officials say it is the worst fire threat in nearly 20 years, with the main blaze burning over 18,000 hectares. Australian Capital Territory Chief Minister Andrew Barr says the emergency will remain until Canberra is at risk. Officials said the searing heat and dry winds will worsen bushfire conditions in New South Wales and Victoria states. Meanwhile, Australia's government has increased supplies of natural gas and renewable energy as part of a $2 billion deal with New South Wales to cut carbon emissions. Since September, Australia has been fighting bushfires that have killed 33 people and 1 billion animals. Colombian President Iván Duque Marquez has rejected Venezuela's proposal of resuming diplomatic relations. Earlier, President Nicolas Maduro said being neighbors, Colombia and Venezuela are obliged to have diplomatic and political relations. Duque said Maduro doled out constant aggression against countries that rejected his dictatorship. He said there is little possibility of providing consular or other services in Venezuela. Maduro's olive branch came a day after Colombia's request for extradition of fugitive lawmaker Aido Malano. Caracas severed its ties with Bogota a year ago after Duque recognized Juan Guaido as the legitimate ruler of Venezuela. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, 24 people have been killed in attacks by rebels. Officials say the Allied Democratic Forces militia targeted the towns of Mementibi, Memovi, Malolia, and Aveli in North Kivu province. They said 11 people were shot and killed in the village of Mantombi while attackers set fire to vehicles in Memov. Earlier on Wednesday, 36 people died in a suspected rebel attack in the Beni region. Rebels have killed over 300 civilians since Congo's military opened an offensive against armed groups in the area last October. In Indonesia, flash floods and landslides have killed 9 people and forced thousands to take refuge in temporary shelters on Sumatra Island. In a statement, the local disaster agency said torrential rain in North Sumatra sparked the disaster. It said most of the victims were drowned or hit by logs that were swept away in the current. The agency officials said rampant illegal logging in the area may have contributed to the disaster. Earlier this month, record rains triggered floods and landslides that killed nearly 70 people in and around Jakarta. We have a lot more coming up right after this short break, so stay tuned. Welcome back. The UK has released $10 million in funding to the United Nations to support Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. The UN's World Food Programme in Bangladesh welcomed the new contribution from the UK's Department for International Development. The UN said under the program, refugees can now buy a variety of food items from World Food Programme outlets across the camps. It said Rohingya families will receive $9 per person per month to spend to e-voucher outlets. Amnesty International says over 750,000 Rohingya refugees have fled Myanmar to Bangladesh. The Myanmar army launched a crackdown on the minority Muslim community in 2017. China's official manufacturing activity has slipped in January with a reduction in production and new orders. The National Bureau of Statistics report says China's Purchasing Managers Index fell to 50 points, down from 50.2 the previous month. The 50-point mark separates expansion from contraction on a monthly basis. The NBS has warned the survey does not include the impact of the coronavirus on the economy. The European Commission says economic sentiment improved in January as confidence in the industrial and construction sectors rose. The Commission says the economic sentiment indicator rose nearly 2 points to over 101 in the bloc. Amongst the largest euro area economies, the ESI soared in Germany by 2 points and France by 1.5 points. In contrast, the Commission said confidence in services increased significantly while it declined in retail. Stock markets in Asia are trading mixed as investors grapple with the impacts of the new coronavirus. Major stocks lose steam amid consistent sell-off as investors stockpile safe haven stocks. Nikkei 225 is trading over 1% higher as shares of index heavyweight robot maker Fanuc rose over 1.5%. Seoul's Kospi has lost over 0.5%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng is trading flat. Meanwhile, international Brent crude oil price surged over 1.5%, pairing yesterday's losses. Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.